Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's Self Dominic Hawkins here. Welcome back to Hoshinden Fireside chats and podcasts. Today, I've got an awesome special guest. I'm joined with a lovely woman, Megumi Kabe Klimek. Megumi-san. Welcome, Megumi, to the show.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Now, Megumi, we know each other through your husband, a mutual friend, a friend of mine.
That's right.
Fennec, lovely man. And we are martial art colleagues. And so Megumi, just before I get you to introduce yourself, I just have to let everyone know that the coolest thing that I discovered was that you and I have the same birthday.
I know. That's so crazy and amazing.
Same day, same month, same year. Born a couple of hours apart.
Yeah. It's a miracle, isn't it?
Which is, I've never met anyone like that. Like, I've met people who were born the same day and same month, but I think you're the only person I've ever met who's literally the same. Yeah, which is very cool.
I had goosebumps when you told me your birthday.
I did enjoy that. You didn't believe me, when I first said that.
No, I didn't. I couldn't. You could see it in my face.
Yeah. So, Megumi, would you be able to just give us a bit of an introduction about yourself? Just vaguely where you grew up. Obviously, you're Japanese. You now live in Australia with your husband. But could you give us an intro about yourself?
Sure. Okay, so as Dom introduced me, my name is Megumi Kabe. People call me Meg in Japan, also in this country too. Was born in Noda in Japan, which is my mother's place. And so grew up in Japan pretty much most of my life until I turned 27 years old. And I came to Australia 7 years ago to study English. And a few years later, I met Mick that Dom mentioned earlier. And now I am here living in Australia.
That's a good story. I didn't realize that you had emigrated to Australia originally for study.
Yeah. So, well, I always wanted to study abroad. So I was into English when I was a high school student. My high school was really focused on English, and I wanted to have opportunity to study abroad for certain times, but unfortunately I didn't. And I went uni and studied sociology for 4 years, which was great. But I got away from studying English for a while, but it was always in my mind, even though after I started working for the company in Japan, that I wanted to study more, and I wanted to talk to more people in the world, not just with the Japanese. So, and one day, I was, I worked for a company in Japan for 3 years, and then realized that, it was still in me that I wanted to learn English further. And one day I decided, and I quit everything. Everybody told me, like including my close friend, told me that I was crazy about that. Yes, some, like most of people, me back then had, pretty stable life. And as a Japanese, like as a, culture, like a changing is a big thing, much more big thing than other country, which is like the Western country, I guess.
Yes.
So so many of my Japanese friends were against that. But I knew that it's never too late to start something new. And then I just quit everything and I came to Australia, Melbourne, to study English.
That's a great story. And I suppose that's a good segue to talk about your family growing up, because maybe you were a little bit more used to change or to moving around and changing because your father had like, what was your father's work specifically?
He so he recently um stopped, but he used to work for government for 40 years.
And so as like growing up, you were you just in one place or you moved around Japan?
Moved around a lot.
Yeah. So like maybe that influenced your willingness, to kind of
maybe,
like, well,
yeah.
I moved around a lot, I can jump in and
yeah, I think you're right.
Whereas some of
kind
the
of like a nomad kind of
yeah,
so
something
used to it.
Tokyo,
Yeah.
Osaka, Kyoto, Australia,
yeah,
So
probably.
mentioning, going back to talk about Noda and in Chiba, that it's interesting. So some of the listeners will pick up on that and some of them won't. But Noda is where Hatsumi Soke lives, the Grandmaster Bujinkan Taijutsu.
That's right.
And so Noda is where I spend most of my time whenever I'm in Japan. And it's interesting because most of the people that I know who either live in Noda now or I know who have a connection to Noda, it's because of Hatsumi Soke. It's because of the Bujinkan. It's because of martial arts study. You're probably the first person that I met who had a connection to Noda through family or just, and you were born there, yeah?
Yeah, I was born in Noda.
So, and was it your mother who grew up in Noda?
Yeah, that's correct.
So could you give us a bit of, I know that you said you moved around a lot, so you didn't grow up in Noda the whole time, but what were your memories of Noda like? What was it like as a town going back, 30 odd years ago?
Yeah, okay. It's a good question. So, well, obviously I was born in there and lived for a couple months after I was born. And well, in general, that is such a place. I mean, I don't know how to say. It is definitely a beautiful place, and between countryside and middle of the city, and people still have connection each other.
Yeah.
Well, especially back then, 30 years ago, when I was around there. I don't know what to say.
Oh, no.
It changed a lot in the past 30 years though. But when I was born, it was a lot more countryside, I guess. But in a good way, people knew each other, who live next to each other or a few blocks away even. Yeah, people warm, and then people loves soy sauce because
Kikkoman
the
factory.
guys like that soy sauce was born. Some people may know. Oh, by the way, so my mom, the school that my mom used to go, which is was primary school, she had a classmate who was the daughter of the Kikkoman soy sauce company.
Yeah, wow.
So it's like, yeah, the community is really, it's not super huge, but everybody know each other.
Yeah.
And like, probably you'd mention later about Hatsumi, but my grandpa was a friend of him, and but they used to train together. So it's such a small community, but like so many things in that one community, and I would say it's dense.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, in that way, I think it's really good place to live or stay.
Yeah, that's great. So, does your family still have connection to Noda?
Yeah, my grandma
Yeah.
lived there almost 10 years after my grandfather passed away.
Oh, wow.
And now she moved closer to my parents' house.
Of course.
Because she has she has reasons to do that. But my uncle's family still live there in Noda.
Yes, you still have this connection to go back to.
Yeah, definitely.
It's in such an interesting town. Like with the Kikkoman factory being effectively the center landmark, of Noda.
Yeah.
And all the funny stories in Bujinkan about all the different people and the different shihan who have worked at the Kikkoman factory over the years.
Yeah, okay.
Like it's just this, it seems like a very uncanny what am I trying to say? Not like a landmark, but like a unique, it's not like a statue in the middle of town. It's like the soy sauce factory.
Yes.
It's kind of cool
Yeah,
though.
it is. Yeah, it is cool.
And I mean, I didn't realize until I first got off the train at would have been Nodashi Eki, that
Okay.
I'm thinking instead of Atago at Nodashi station, where you walk off and then directly next to the train line is the huge Kikkoman factory lands. But
Oh yeah.
do you know any of the history of the story of Kikkoman? Like, as in why it's in Noda, or what it was a family, it's obviously a family name, family lineage.
Well, I think you know more, you know better about
Oh,
it
no, it
than
was
me.
a genuine question. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, so obviously the soy sauce was born in that city in Noda, right?
Mm-hmm.
And well, I think he asked me the question. I don't really know about the history
Oh no,
though.
that's all right.
Well, I visited the museum, and I had my mom, was a classmate with the daughter of the,
Yeah.
Kikkoman CEO and etc. But was it something to do with the? I think it was really convenient location for them to
Right.
carry the soy sauce with the ship
Oh really?
by the canal or something.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So like the
Yeah.
trade. So they would put the soy
So
sauce on the
yeah,
boat.
soy sauce is really heavy, isn't it? So it's really hard to carry on the load. So instead
Ah,
they use a ship, and there's a really good river to connect to the middle of Tokyo. So it
yeah.
was really easy for them to carry.
I didn't know that.
I
That's
think
really cool. I just loading up
yeah.
barrels of soy sauce onto boats and floating them down the canal. That's do you have any idea? And this, it can just be very rough. How long has the Kikkoman factory been producing soy sauce?
Good question. I really don't know.
Must be
I have
like
to Google.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
Couple of 100 years, isn't it?
Couple of 100 years. Yeah. Wow.
Mm,
Wow.
and so.
So I'm just that. I mean, that's impressive. I'm going to have to go and do some research in the Kikkoman factory
Me too.
history, because I'm interested now. And I know I have not been to the museum, but you said you've been to the museum at the Kikkoman property.
It is amazing. Highly recommended.
I'll have to go next
And
time.
you should. And so if you check the factory at the end of the tour, you will get a bottle of soy sauce,
Ah, yeah.
which you can enjoy.
Yes.
Cute, isn't it?
Awesome.
And the tour is free also.
Oh, cool.
Mm.
Yeah, I'll have to go find a time. I mean, I'm always in Noda, so I'll go find a time.
Next time.
So kind of jumping from that and talking about your childhood and growing up, moving around, having your father work in a government position, that must have been quite secure. His income must have been quite secure at a time when Japan was, in the 1990s, was suffering quite an economic depression.
Yeah.
What was your experience of that like? Obviously as a child, like I have no real memories of the 1987 depression in Australia. I was tiny. So maybe it's different through the eyes of a child, but do you have any experience of that? What it was like in Japan after the massive economic collapse in the 90s?
Yeah, okay. So it was huge things for all Japanese, for sure. And back then, like as I was a child, so I was not really aware, fully aware, how the economic situation was, etc. But I clearly remember that, well, as a society, the people almost, all the people around me, there were not many people who, would spend money crazy, or would, buy boat or expensive car.
Yeah.
Even though you are not poor,
Yeah.
like we were taught, like all through our lives, that you better save money,
Yeah.
just in case for the future.
Yeah.
So that's how I, grew up. And well, it was definitely a hard time for Japan itself. But well, I was quite lucky. I think that my dad had a secure job, and my family, my parents tried their best not to make feel us. I mean, which my sister and myself, um, that we were in the middle of the depression.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, yeah, as a family, I was lucky that my parents had thought well about it.
Yeah.
But in general, yeah, I would say it was not an easy time to grow up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then remember myself being really tight about money, even though nobody told me.
Yeah.
Like I didn't say that I wanted this toy, or I wanted to
Yeah.
go on a holiday every year. I was really how do I say it? Like um modest about
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
about yeah. That's well, I think that's naturally how I grew up, I
Mm.
guess.
Mm.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only kid who grew up in that way.
Yeah.
Is it am I answering your question?
Yeah, no, it's a great answer. Pardon me. I was just thinking, so my family line, the Hawkins family, uh, um, had an interesting experience through the Australian Depression in the 1930s.
Okay.
And then my father was one of 11 children originally.
Wow.
He was born in the 1940s, and
Mm.
and because they were all the children of these parents who had lived through the Depression, and had struggled quite well through the Depression, then they all adopted this thrifty modesty to their spending,
Okay.
and were really obsessed, saying like, be very careful with debt, be very careful with credit. Things can wipe out all of a sudden. And so then my brother and I, we're obviously sort of two generations on from that. We grew up with exactly the same mentality, and
You're
so
right.
been very conservative with money, done very well for ourselves, but also been very risk averse, and very suspicious of bubbles and asset bubbles, things like that. And I do find it interesting, like at the moment in Australia, with the housing prices and the asset prices that are so ridiculous. I do look back at the real estate prices in Japan right before the economic collapse, and I think, well, I won't be buying a house anytime soon. And that's not financial advice to anyone listening, just a commentary, of the things. Like I still find it fascinating, in Australia. Let's talk about say a little apartment in the city. A tiny apartment, one bedroom, might cost someone 300,000-400,000 Australian dollars.
It is ridiculous, yes.
Yeah, ridiculous. And I remember last time I was in Japan, Tokyo, I spent some time just looking through the windows of the real estate agents, especially in Kashiwa, because I found that was really interesting to me, all the high-rise apartments in Kashiwa.
Yeah, okay.
And like 2-bedroom apartments for sale in Kashiwa. I can't remember the tatami sizing, but the number of mat sizings, maybe 5 tatami and a half piece in the rooms.
Yeah.
and it was like to purchase was about 45,000 Australian dollars, 40,000 Australian dollars, and that was just the norm. Like looking through all of these, they were about 30 to $50,000,
About
depending
the
on
same.
how many rooms you wanted, and
How old it is.
yeah, how modern, that's right, and what part of town. And it was, I mean, to put that side by side is crazy. It's 10 times cheaper. And I thought,
Yeah, right.
wow, why buy one Australian apartment when I can buy 10 apartments in Japan for the same value? But I think for people who don't travel outside of Australia, if this is all they know, they just think that this is normal.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
I encourage my students to just do a little bit of research and world history and economic history, just so they can get some perspective on what the average cost of living is for humans in different places, and what's a bit ridiculous. But it's interesting, like I said, that that's quite recent for Japan, the depression through the 90s. And so I imagine that the effects of that, they're still rolling on now, and they're still going to roll on for another generation, I assume.
Yeah, I
People would
guess
be
so.
quite nervous to spend. Whereas in Australia, I feel like it's been it's been like 70 or 80 years,
Yeah.
and so maybe people have forgotten.
Maybe, yeah, it's a really interesting difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, as a government who wants civilian to spend money, it's a good thing. What is happening in
Sure.
Australia. People forget what happened, and then they start to spend a lot again.
Yeah, confidence.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, yeah, I think I don't know why is it so different between in Japan and Australia, like how people react to it.
I think that, I mean, it's just my opinion, but personally, there's obviously a number of political policies that make it more favorable for certain assets to increase in price. But what's really interesting? It's interesting looking at price charts over a long period of time, like decades, say 50 years, 100 years. And Australia's house price, it all started to increase in 2000, 2001.
Right.
When the Reserve Bank responded to the dot-com crash, the dot-com bubble.
Okay.
So that was where the stock market was massively overinflated and overpriced. And people thought that technology companies were, you could put $5 in technology company and pull out $1 million tomorrow. And so people were gambling a lot on the stock market. And then when the House of Cards pulled out, which was when it was when the central banks shrunk the money supply. So they do this on purpose. And it just ripped the bottom out. And the Reserve Bank comes in and makes a lot of easy credit. It says like, oh, look, we're going to make it really easy for you we're going to lower interest rates. It's easy for you to get loans.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that money was then people borrowed, and immediately they put it in real estate, because real estate was seen as more safe, especially than the stock market at the time. But obviously, then you've got millions of people purchasing real estate. Pardon me, my drink. My little winter cough. Yeah. So people start bidding up the prices of real estate, and then the government comes in Australia and they make negative gearing laws where people can say, oh, I can make a loss on renting out a property, and it's good. I can write my personal tax off against it. So people started buying up multiple investment properties, multiple houses, and then go forward 20 years, and now here we are today, where it's just ridiculous. And for people who might listen to this in other countries, as an example, so a friend of mine, I'm 34, so also a friend of mine who's in their mid-30s, they and their wife, they have one child. They just decided to buy a 2-bedroom house, like a very small 2-bedroom house. And it was in Kew, so that's a place that's about maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes from the city, from Melbourne, from the center of Melbourne. Yeah. And so this little 2-bedroom house was nothing fancy, and they paid 1.4 million Australian dollars for this house. And yeah, and there were people at the auction. There were hundreds of people at the auction, bidding for this house.
Yeah, so competitive.
And it's just so ridiculous. I think some people who don't live in Australia don't realize how ridiculous it is, and what a house of cards it is. But the reason that I bring it up and that I'm so interested is because for me, in martial arts has always taught me to look at economics and economic strategy, and to just make smart decisions. Just like combat strategy, you just make decisions about. That's what martial arts is, just decision making, choices, consequences. And it was Hatsumi Soke in some of his work and some of his books where he commented that martial artists need to know, they need to have their eye to the ground on political strategy, economic strategy, and combat strategy, and that those are the 3 areas that would help the individual make really smart decisions.
Right.
And so I always thought it was interesting. Some people don't put martial arts and economics together, but I do. And so I'm interested in Japan because it was such a recent problem, such a recent depression.
Well, still is.
Yeah.
We're not totally out of it yet, so
No. And it's something I find interesting. So being someone, I was born in Australia, with an Australia and English background, British, and I had grown up. My impression of Japan growing up was the country of the future. That's what it was always kind of advertised as. In Australia, it was like maglev trains and futuristic, like almost like you could just get in a little bubble of glass and fly around the whole country. And so that was my genuine impression of Japan growing up. And then when I traveled to Japan, I was stunned to see that it actually it really looked like the country had grown and then paused. And in terms of its, like, what's the right word? Even in Noda, where you can't really use a card to pay for things at many shops, you have to use cash.
That's right. I think in saying that, Noda is like a best example of the the place that paused for a while after the clash. Really good point, I think.
And maybe the word pause, maybe there's a better word, but it's the best word I can think of at the moment, where like it seemed like things were really building and changing, and then everything just stayed as it was.
But if you talk about Noda, there's another reason to it, though.
Oh, really?
Politically. So as I mentioned earlier, so did I? My grandpa used to work for government as well.
Oh, right.
And so and so so back then there was this mayor who was mayor of Noda for a long time, and he so while he was in charge, he stopped a lot of development in Noda city. Do you know that?
No, I didn't know that, but that makes sense.
Okay. So so my grandpa was was opposed to him. I mean, like,
Oh, really?
my grandpa didn't really want to, change every single thing, but
Sure.
well, he was aware that Noda as a city was a bit left behind, in terms of, those things, to make the city more convenient. Well, that's partly why Noda is still like that. It's changing really in the last 10 years, though.
Right.
But yeah, that's why the progress as a city was really, really slow.
I didn't realize that. That's interesting.
It's interesting. Yeah.
Because Noda's, it's the kind of place where I've noticed if you're a foreigner, you're probably there for Bujinkan.
Yeah.
And that's really like the other foreigners who I meet in Noda are all there to study,
Yeah. Okay.
So it's got that kind of interesting, I wouldn't call it tourism, but the thing that brings foreigners to the town, as far as I could see, was Hatsumi's soke. And so he kind of formed this little mini tourism world in Noda, where there's like just down from Hombu Dojo near Atago Station, there's two awesome guys, Argentinian men, who run a little bar, a burger bar, and it's basically pitched at oh, you're here to study Bujinkan, you should pop down to the little burger bar after class. Like even
cute.
Paul Massey Sensei and his partner Tomoe, and how they'd set up their Airbnb, multiple guest houses, but again, kind of primarily focused on the tourism generated by Bujinkan.
Yeah,
and so
okay.
I thought it was an interesting little microcosm that Hatsumi Soke created, and whether that might have brought in a lot of money or interest into Noda, kind of brought in fresh investment or.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, well, I don't know how you felt. How did you feel between the gap between Noda city and the other city you visited? Did you feel?
Well, I felt like in the terms of the buildings, it was obvious that a lot more money and investment had been put into places like Kashiwa, and I spent a lot of
yes, there are a lot of department stores there.
Yeah, and spend time down like Shinjuku, and obviously as you get closer into the city, very different. And the roads and the infrastructure was very different, but I still found even in like Hanzuman, like even down right in the city, or just near the Imperial Palace, I still found that I'd have to just use cash to pay for most things, or for lunch, going to a restaurant on the third floor of a building, basically overlooking the Imperial Palace, but I have to only pay cash. They don't take card, and it's interesting because coming from Australia, you kind of you get this very incorrect assumption that that the whole world is moving at the same rate. And so, but again, they were like financial pauses is what I saw in Japan. Things that had paused financially, not the people, not the culture, but the economics.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And personally, I wouldn't be surprised if Australia goes through a similar kind of thing. Obviously, it will be different. It'll be Australian flavored. But maybe in 20 or 30 years, there'll be parts of Australia that have paused.
Maybe.
It's kind of catching up. But yeah, I find it fascinating. I love Japan. I really enjoy my travels there. And I was very lucky that I try to go every year and spend 3 weeks or a month in Noda. And last year I was there in January. I got back on the 3rd of February.
Yeah, right.
Just
Oh,
in
just in
time.
time. You are so lucky.
Super lucky. Woo. And
Because
so
now we don't know when we can visit next.
I know.
You are
Yeah.
very lucky.
Super lucky. And so this year, obviously, who knows, maybe this year won't be able to travel at all there, but
Mm.
I still chit chat on one of my teachers.
Yeah, right.
We still have video calls every month, and
Mm.
talk, and he gives me updates on what's going on, and so I
That's
still,
amazing.
yeah, I'm still really,
Yeah.
really grateful, really blessed to have the connection. I talking about that,
Mm.
obviously your family is still, um, you're the only member of your family in Australia, yes?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And have you and Mick been able to get back to Japan to visit your family? Obviously not this year, but over the last few years. And are you planning on getting back? Like, do you think you'll move back to Japan in the future?
Good question. So far, I have, between me and my husband, Mick,
Mm,
we haven't, um, discussed about it
mm, mm.
though. But well, there is a possibility
Yeah.
always. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Well,
right.
since Mick loves Japan and
Yeah.
the culture, and he does, martial art, obviously
Yes. Yeah.
too. So yeah, we love the idea of living in Japan. But well, it's gonna be, I don't know, interesting. Well, I'm expecting child
Yes. Oh,
in few weeks actually.
very exciting.
Yeah, yeah. So depend on that too,
Mm.
and then it's a boy, by the way, and
Oh,
yeah,
yay.
yeah, we are so excited. Yeah, how things gonna go with the boy,
Mm.
and yeah, well, we want more kids in the future,
Yep.
and kind of see how everything goes. But we are always open to to move, to change where we live,
Yes.
including country.
Yep.
It might be, yeah, good place, good decision to make, to move back to Japan if there is a good opportunity.
Yeah. I suppose it's good to have
Mm.
both options. Australia and
Mm.
Japan are pretty good options
Oh
worldwide.
yes.
You know,
That's
they're
right.
they're both pretty fun, pretty good opportunities. Very
Mm.
safe and wonderful places to raise a family. Mm,
That's for sure. Yeah,
mm,
for sure.
mm. Well, look,
Mm.
we're coming up towards the end of our time. We've sort of got about 5 or 7 minutes left in the chat.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah, it's been great. The time flies in these. I tell you, I
that's
love them.
right. Yeah,
Now,
really, indeed.
I need to sort of tell people we need 2 hours, not 1 hour. Hmm. But just sort of in wrapping up the conversation and tying off some of the things we've talked about, um,
Mhm.
with in terms of say like Australia, um, and your experience in Japan, what is it that you think Australia really I don't know what quite the right word is. Not has, but like what are the specific things about Australia that you think that kind of wow you, that you're really excited by? What was it that drew you here other than just English and practicing studying English?
Okay, so good thing about living in Australia, is that what you mean?
Yeah, but even not just living, just like things that you like about, could be the culture or the
Sure.
temperature.
Mm. Okay, yeah, okay, I can talk about it hours. So, obviously, so I'm from Japan, which
Mm,
is very, one of the safest country in the world.
mm,
And, you know, yeah, and Shinkansen and in
yeah,
everything,
yeah.
up to date kind of things, like high technology. That was really convenient when I grew up. But on the other hand, people tend to be too busy. So
Mm.
we invented those, like, things to make our life more convenient, right?
Oh yeah.
But because with being able to save time, much more time using
Mm.
those things,
Yeah.
we got even busier.
Right.
You
With
know what
work.
I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was kind of fed up with that life. Well, it surely is convenient and it's so safe, and the food, everything is so tasty.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of the best country to live. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But we we forgot something, in the process of development. It got too convenient in some point, and we forgot the connection between people, how important to sometimes get away from busy life, or
Mm.
that life that is, example, like my life back there was amazing. I had nothing that I really should complain about. I had everything, all the security and things, but I think I took it for granted for like way too long time, which was most of my life, 27 years.
I like all of us.
You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I wanted to see, like, with my eyes and feel how's like outside of Japan, if you don't have those things that I took it for granted,
Yeah.
All the computer, smartphone, everything, and saves you so much time. But if you have that everywhere, and if everybody has that, and if everybody thinks that it's normal to have, then your your life is not rich anymore.
Yes.
And to be away from the society, like, I had to reset myself, and I had to think what's really important for me, and connection to others, and be away from the like convenient things that you always have in your life, and take time to do anything you like, and more nature. So, well, I lived in Tokyo for years before I came here, so it was really well, I don't want to like dream, the people who wants to visit, who
No.
are listening.
And it's not that. It's just, I mean, obviously everyone's unique. Everyone has their individual contrasts. And I know what you're saying about the connection to people. I mean, like in Australia, I still see we seem to still get together and cook and have big, family and friends, get together with neighbors and cook a meal.
Yeah, exactly.
And I didn't find that in Japan. I didn't find people going out and cooking together, like having big, maybe in family groups, but for special celebrations, but not just on a Tuesday night for fun.
No, that's sad, isn't it?
Do you think that it's because the work, like you said, people just work so hard, like they fill their day with work?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. It's a huge problem we have to solve, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, in your experience, so you say you were living and working in Tokyo for many years. What would that look like? Well, like what would a normal week look like for yourself working in Tokyo? So at the time you were a single woman living in Tokyo, working after your degree. Could you give me an idea of what that was like?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so it's not something fun to probably listen to, but basically, you work full time, go to the office 8 to 9, depend on your position and your department, though, and even earlier, sometimes you have to go to work if your boss goes earlier, or the situation, his busy time. And basically you don't leave your workplace until your boss leave. So that's, even though you finish working. So I don't say it happens to every single company.
Sure.
And yeah, some young companies doesn't allow you to do that anymore, which is great. Things that happening, which is a new change. But still majority of the company has that sort of culture. And basically, even though you're great at working and you're good at scheduling, you're on top of everything, then after that you have to check like what your boss is doing, and if he's still working, then you cannot leave.
Really?
Wow. So
wow.
Yes, so even though you had appointment, or something to do with your friends or some fun, probably if your boss is not that type of person who let you go, then you have to wait until he says I can go, or he leaves. Yes,
and
it is.
So you say you start at 8 a.m. In the morning, and then what time do you think, just a normal day, if you're waiting for the boss, what time would you leave the office?
Okay. So the on time is 5, right? 5 p.m.
Yes.
But well, it's normal that I finish work in 7, 8.
12 hours.
Yeah, quite normal.
Wow.
Yes. And if you work in the office, you have to wear, like
uniform.
Formal, uniform, as well. And if you're women, you have to wear high heel, and you have to put on makeup. Doesn't matter how busy or
Really?
what situation you are. And not wearing makeup is rude in Japanese society.
Really? Wow.
Yes. I know. Yes, that's why you seldom see the women without makeup in in Tokyo.
Right.
It
Right.
Yeah, it is part of the culture. Yeah, and then so your Monday, Friday finish with that the time schedule, right?
Wow.
And by the time when you finish your work, you are exhausted.
Yeah.
Basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I found, so when I used to work in Japan, in Tokyo, I found it was really hard to connect to the people outside of the company.
Yes.
I had some good friends in my company, and
Yes.
my boss. My boss. Well, I had several bosses, and not everybody was like that. Some bosses were like, "Oh, you're young, so you should enjoy more of your." That was awesome, but not everybody is like that. And and on the weekend, because you sacrifice your energy and life that much during the week, you're basically exhausted.
You just need to rest.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't even get weekend off if you're in a busy, time. Yeah.
Wow.
It's again depend on the company and position and department where you are. But the experience I had was not real. It was majority.
Quite normal.
And it is getting better and better. For sure. Yeah, but the progress is still really, really slow, baby step. Especially because I think Japan in general tend to be afraid of the exchange. So it takes time, really long time, to change one thing.
And do you think that some of the reason that people submit themselves to just working so hard is part of this save money, just work and have money and have security? And we're going back to talking about after the depression. We're very scared of, they lost so much wealth overnight. Massive.
Lots of people commit suicide when they economic crash back then.
And it was huge. It averaged, I think, 70 to 80% of general net wealth of the Japanese people. was just wiped out. Like, and obviously transferred to other people, because wealth is only transferred, it's never destroyed. But that doesn't help everyone just on the street, the normal people.
No, yeah, that's such a feeling, isn't it?
It's really interesting. I didn't realize that. I knew that the work was hard. I didn't realize that some people would be at the office for 10 to 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, 50 to 60 hours.
Some of my friends, did, even longer than me. So,
yeah,
I'm the the person who has this experience, really.
Amazing. And then is it funny to you when you come to Australia, were you like, these people don't do anything?
Not nothing, but I was amazed. People, they respect each other, and they saying no is a good thing. It's for each other. We are human, and okay, we make money to live, to do whatever we want to do, but we are not born to work.
Yes,
that's different thing. It's opposite, actually. And so work-life balance in this country, I mean Australia, is working really well, I would say.
Yeah,
it's definitely a good thing about Australia.
Yeah, fantastic. Oh, I could keep chit-chatting. I've noticed that we're run out of time, but it's so interesting. Interesting.
Same.
And I'm really grateful that I get the chance to chat with you, Meg, because it's your direct experience. It's you as a Japanese woman having lived in Japan. It's so interesting. It's not theoretical, it's just your life experience.
Yeah, okay.
So maybe
I'm glad you enjoyed
we could have another video chat in a few months' time.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it was not enough. I want to
That's
talk
right.
more now.
There's so much more to talk about. So many more questions.
Yeah.
But I might wrap it up. Yeah. Oh, look, more than welcome. Thank you for joining me on the show, Meg. I try to keep these at about an hour, though, just so that the students can watch them in chunks.
Okay, all right. I'll let you go.
4-hour-long videos. But thank you so much again for joining me, Meg, and good luck.
Thanks again,
Good luck with your the birth and your family.
Thank you.
Over the next few weeks. Really exciting. I look forward to hearing the updates.
Oh yes, soon.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you again, and to everyone at home. Hope that you really enjoyed that, and we'll see you soon. Ciao.